From the America First Policy Institute, with former Acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security and former White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary, both under President Trump, comes a podcast bringing America First solutions to Washington, D.C. and in every state around the country.
And I think, again, that's what is a big difference here at AFPI than some of these other organizations around town. We do one thing, we win.
The border's a mess.
They refuse to be transparent with the American people.
You're listening to the Tank Podcast, powered by the America First Policy Institute, hosted by Chad Wolf and Hogan Gidley.
How do we continue to talk about America First policies? Policies at the end of the day are what affect Americans.
A brand new episode starts now.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Come on, guys.
Come on. All right, there we go. Many of you may know this, and I know we've talked about some of these things outside this room, but no shock, but the left controls all of the levers of power and influence in this country. Hollywood, big tech, colleges and universities, and yes, the mainstream media. And as we kicked around the inevitable sadness we all feel when we realize this, we thought, how do we get into this space and start to get more people in tune and more people to understand the importance and, quite frankly, the proven success of the America First agenda? And we thought, all right, we should really start to do some type of media internally that we can kind of broadcast the world. Let's do some type of podcast. And so we called it The Tank, and we've had an incredible year of guests, and we talk about things like culture that we're fighting against right now in this country. We talk about the major issues, the hot topics, and we bring on incredible guests like our own Linda McMahon, for example. We bring on people like Morgan Ortagus, who is a former spokesperson for the Department of State. We brought on Danny Goki, who was a award-winning singer, was an American Idol third-place finisher. People like that to really kind of dive into some of the issues that we face in this country today.
And we do all of that if we can find time on Hogan's schedule. But gratefully, we're able to do that. So today, we're going to give you a little flavor of what we try to do on those podcasts about every other week. So what we're going to have about 4 or 5 different guests that come up. This is going to be quick hitting. They're going to stay on stage for probably about 6 or 7 minutes, answer a couple of questions, and we're just going to rotate them through. We may have a couple of interesting questions involved here, kind of get you to know a little bit more about them outside of what they do and how you've seen them on TV from time to time. So with that, we're going to just roll right into it, what we call in Tank Talks, a play on the podcast. So first up, as everyone knows who he is, Bob Unanue is obviously a board member of AFPI, CEO of Goya Foods, but most importantly for this conversation is also the chair of our Hispanic Leadership Conference. And so with that, Bob, we'd like to welcome you to the stage.
Come on, Bob. See you?
Yeah. Good to see you. All right, Bob, we're going to kick it right over to you. Obviously, we heard from Brooke earlier about how you've been all over the country recently talking to a number of different groups. So maybe in your words, what have you heard from them, the Hispanic community? What are they seeing that they like from the conservative movement? And what are they upset about these days?
Muchas gracias. Well, good evening.
De nada.
Well, the good news is the Latino feels it's not necessarily about chasing the Latino vote as Republicans. It's that they feel that they've been abandoned. You look at Myra Flores, her dad even moved over to the Republican Party because they feel they've been abandoned. But the Hispanic immigration is a moving target. I'm part Irish, so the Irish immigration started and ended. The Italian started and ended. But the Latino population, it's a moving target. And people are escaping from countries for opportunities here, for prosperity and for freedom, only to find it here. So I believe that, the future of this country, we're the second largest Latino country in the world, will be the biggest group by 2050 or next week for the next caravan. But so we have the opportunity to reach these people. We're hurting as Latinos. And the country is hurting. The Baltimore Bridge was destroyed in a moment, in less than a minute. But what took years to build, the Cuban poet Jose Marti said, there's people who are born to love and to build or to hate and destroy. What this administration done is hate and destroy. The Latinos are the number one victims of child trafficking, of human trafficking. So what we need to do, and what they're doing here at AFPI, is building. It's easy to destroy, and I tell you, Biden has done a great job at that. But to build, you got Brooke Rollins and this team who are the future of this country. We're going to build back, and they've been building for the last 3 years and done an incredible job.
Bob, okay. Those America First policies that we talk about every single day, of course they secured the border, but they went to protect our communities, including the Latino communities who immigrated into this country legally. So many on the left have tried to paint the America First policies and the leader of that movement as someone who hates immigrants.
First of all, Latinos have our values: God, family, work, freedom. And those are the values that are Donald J. Trump. He respects life. Look, trafficking is the biggest industry in the world, more than drugs. $250 billion. Our Secretary of Homeland and Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, a Latino, says that Henry Ford would be embarrassed by the assembly line of bringing in kids. We've gone from 33,000 missing kids to over 150,000 under this administration. Tara Lee wrote us last year, said they're complicit. There's just too much money. And, the genie says to Aladdin, never drink from the cup of money or power. You'll never be satisfied. This administration is drinking from the cup of money, and they're also drinking the cup of control and power. And we have to stop being sheep led to slaughter and abused and exploited.
Let's clap for that.
By the way, should he have a chair?
Well, we talked about this.
I don't think that belt buckle I don't think he can sit down with that.
So,
Oh, there he is. There we go. Thank you very much.
this is classic Hogan. We actually talked about this, and Hogan's like, oh, yeah, no chair.
It's not true.
Allie's chair. Great.
It's not true.
Great. Perfect. Well, just as you sit down, we're going to wrap up with you, Bob.
Thank you. Bob Unanue, everybody.
Don't get comfortable.
Yeah. We've got to get this back on track here. We're a little over. So we're going to ask you a couple of questions, and we're going to do this with each of our guests that come up here. You've maybe got like 3 seconds to answer, so this is like top of mind type of thing. So we're going to let Hogan jump in.
The number one.
All up.
What is the number one selling canned good at Goya?
Well,
very important.
As Latinos, we say, as Latinos, we're united by language, we're separated by the bean. So we have, people have their favorite bean, and it just so happens that black beans, which are high in protein, fiber, antioxidants, phytonutrients.
Hey, right here. This is
find them at the local
already.
Grocery store. It's consumed by Venezuelans, Cubans, Brazilians, and Mexicans. And just knowing that, it seems silly, but those are the nuances that help us to go into each neighborhood by the demographics and talk to each people, and whether they're an economic immigrant or political immigrant. But black beans.
That's a long answer. That's good.
Well, he finally got his chair. Now he can breathe. He's in his chair.
I also know that Goya does an employee of the month every month. Who's been your best employee of the month?
Well, we were boycotted because I used the Holy Spirit, put the word blessed on my lips, and Donald Trump in the same sentence. So Latinos came out like AOC to boycott us, Julian Castro. And by the way, it's okay to boycott a company, but you can't defend it like Donald Trump did and Ivanka. But so when this happened, boycott turned into boycott. We were there to give away food and to we've worked with other administrations. And the fact that AOC called for a boycott, we did so well, we had to make her employee of the month.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Good. Sir.
Appreciate it. All right. Up next, we have the Chief Engagement Officer at the America First Policy Institute and the Executive Director at AFW, Ashley Hayek. You're up first.
I'm up first?
Yes.
Wow.
We only rehearsed this 9
That's
times.
right. So, Ashley, you've talked to the executive committee earlier or yesterday, a good war room session today. Let's try to boil it down for folks here. So obviously, as you and your team are across the country in a lot of different of the Project 19 states and different counties, what are the top 3 sort of main issues that you see out there, whether it's election integrity, whatever it might be? What are the top 3? And then again, really quick, what are the top 3? And then what are the top 3 solutions you think we need to be sort of working towards November?
So the fact of the matter is we will be outspent, but we will not be outsmarted. We will be outlawyered, but we will be ever prepared. And we have unity, whereas they are so divided right now. They are eating themselves from the inside out. It is a disaster. And we are, because of the coalition meeting that we had on April 3rd, bringing all of those groups together, being coordinated like never before. We have a clear path to victory that I do not think they have right now. The messaging comes up amongst every single war room and every single opportunity I get to speak with people. But we are on the right side of policy. When you look at what's happening today in Arizona and the legislature on abortion, they want to put forth a constitutional amendment that would make abortion legal up until the moment a woman is giving birth. And that's not where Arizonans are. So us with our messaging, us with our policies, with our tactics, we have the winning strategy that we will take back this country in November.
That's very good, Ashley. You can tell Ashley's done some media training because she didn't actually answer my question. She answered what she wanted to answer. So very good. I love that. Love that.
I learned it from her.
I gotta say, that brings a tear to my eye. Thank you so much.
To his eyes.
I love that. Ashley, you know, when we were first starting the Center for Election Integrity, one of the things that I was tasked with and I thought was important was to take a look at the entire playing field, to see who was out in the space doing the work. And I always talk about how there were groups that are organized, there are groups that are active, and then the groups that are effective, a lot smaller than the groups that are just out there. So one of the things you set out to do, which is brilliant, is to build coalitions in a lot of these states to have ground troops so that we can give them vital information needed to perform their work, but also to kind of plug holes if we see some issues out there where they can't handle something but we can, and vice versa. So talk a little bit about how you develop these relationships, but also built out these coalitions in the states, because that's what we're going to need to kind of have on our side. It's not been done like this ever before, and we need that to win.
Yeah. Brooke likes to say that AFPI is an embarrassment of riches, and it's very true. I mean, you have Hogan, Gidley, and Chad Wolf, Linda McMahon, and Bob Unanue, Lee Zeldin, and all of these amazing superstars. And so it's not difficult to get them all into the room when they're going to get to interact with so many incredible people. So that's kind of the carrot, if you will. The other thing is people are just hungry for unity, and they're hungry for just tools. And so by having the voter file, by being able to share that, by having no sense of ownership, I don't have to take the credit for it. How can we make sure that you're successful? America First is unique in that we are rooted in servant leadership. I come from campaign world. I've never worked in government. I'm not sure I ever will. However, what I had a really hard time with when I first went to America First was the idea of servant leadership, in that it's not just you're out for blood because you're on a political campaign and you're going to have to pack up your bags and leave. It's about building long-term relationships and working together. And that's really what this coalition is all about. What's just really alarming, though, our team deployed to Nevada, Wisconsin, Arizona on the election days. In Nevada, on the Republican side, on the conservative side, in the election processing center, there was Texas Public Policy Foundation and America First Policy Institute. That's it. There were no other, the GOP wasn't there. No other conservative groups were there. No one was there watching to make sure that we had everything we needed for an election night to go smoothly in the Nevada primary. That's extremely concerning. The Democrats did. So being able to identify that today, or at that point in February, well in advance of the election, it gives us all sorts of opportunities to do tests, to try, and to make sure we can bring everybody together and fill the holes.
Well, as you can tell, Ashley's a wealth of knowledge. She's got Sam Mims also on her team, which has a lot of data. So we want to thank you for coming out. We've got a couple of questions for you. Again, we got to keep this moving. Been told to keep this on track. So you're a transplant from California. You're in Virginia now. If someone came out with $1 million right now and dropped it, would you move back to California?
I'd have to consider what type of cardboard box that would afford me to allow me to buy to live there, to house my kids. But no, I would not.
Okay.
Nice. I like that.
Okay, here's my question. You juggle so much. She is a mother of 5 children. She is doing work at AFW, building out coalitions all around the country. So the question's obvious. Which one's your favorite kid?
You are, Hogan. You're my most special child.
Yeah.
And my favorite cabinet secretary is Doug Bernhardt.
Yes.
David Bernhardt, sorry.
Me too.
Yes, David.
Me too.
Thank you.
But my baby turns 2 tomorrow. So
There we go.
There we go.
Congratulations.
All right. Big round of applause for Ashley.
I think I want to... I'm switching this up.
Okay.
I'm working on my own stagecraft in real time here. They're coming and going from there. I come over here. See? See what we're doing?
Got to make it difficult, always. Let me welcome to the stage former DNI, John Ratcliffe. Come on up. Obviously, not only the former Director of National Intelligence, also a congressman from the great state of Texas here as well. There we go. There we go. Which we'll have a good question for you later on that front. But we want to jump right into it. Obviously, there's a number of different national security threats facing the country. A number we talked about here.
A lot more than there were a few years ago.
A lot more. So what do you think as we roll into November, whether it's Ukraine or Israel or whatever it might be, what do you think are the number 2 national security issue that's on the mind of most Americans that are going to be most impactful to the election in November?
It's funny. Typically, elections come down to, it's the economy, stupid,
yeah.
Right? And how people's personal financial situation is and how they've been affected. And unfortunately, national security issues often don't actually affect the outcome. I do think 2024 is different. And the primary one is the border and immigration issue. It's become, as everyone knows, every state is now a border state, and this wave or invasion of illegal immigrants coming into our country has caused a crime wave and all of the problems, not to mention the terror watch list suspects coming across the border from all of the countries that hate us. And that, the American people see that and they feel that. And so I really think that issue, and polling shows that. The polling shows that this time. And the reason that everyone believes it is because you watched the Biden administration shift. So they went from saying their border is secure, the border is secure, the border is secure, to now the border's a crisis, but it's not our fault. We can't do anything about it. It's Congress, which shows that they know that is an important issue. The other one that I will say, though, I think that I think can have an impact is what's happening in Israel, what's happened, the attack in Gaza, and now the attacks by Iran. And the reason I say that is the Jewish American community has typically voted Democratic in this country, and that is changing. Some of those opinions are changing, and it's also having an effect on money, Jewish money into the campaigns. And I know that from being out there and talking to a lot of Jewish Americans who haven't voted Republican in the past. So I think both of those things could have an impact.
Well, I think before we go on to Hogan's question, I think it's really important that you said that. So usually if I were to ask 5 years ago, what's the most important national security issue, it's almost always something that's occurring overseas. And I think President Trump, during the 4 years that he was in office, started focusing more on the homeland, on the sovereignty of our country, on how do you protect Americans. And so, although we didn't set it up, but I'm glad you answered the border and homeland security as the number one driving concern for most Americans. I think that is a lasting change of President Trump.
Yeah, and I'm glad you talked about the homeland, because so many out there will kind of criticize the America First movement as being isolationist. I was on a show recently where someone said to me, when did the Republican Party, when did the right become the movement of isolationism? And I said, we're not. We're the party of receipts. We want to know where the money's being spent, okay? It's fine to spend it, but what are we getting? If you're buying oligarchs' cars or whatever, that's no good. If you're using it to protect you and protect us, that's fine. So I guess my question is, how do we begin to combat some of that information, that misinformation out there that somehow, some way, America First means America alone?
Well, I talked a little bit about this last night. You do a side-by-side comparison. What did America First look like for 4 years? No wars, Putin not invading countries, China not misbehaving the way that they are, Iran not attacking Israel, all of those things that weren't happening that are now happening with policies that are that initially bragged about being the opposite of America First. And so, the position of the left is that when you make those side-by-side comparisons, they can't defend it. It's indefensible. You can't look. If you were having the debate with someone, have them pull out a world map, point to a spot on the map where America's national security posture has improved anywhere in the world in the last 3 years. And that's why the response to that kind of side-by-side comparison is to pivot to Donald Trump's been indicted, all of those things, because they can't defend what's happening and the fact that America First policies clearly demonstrated that America was better, safer, and that the world was better and safer with those policies.
Well, look, again, we could talk to Director Ratcliffe a lot. Thank you for coming out. A couple of questions for you. DNI or Congressman? Which one was better?
Easy. DNI.
Right answer.
Well, I enjoyed being in Congress, and no offense to my colleagues that are out there, but in Congress, your ability to get things done is dependent on so many factors that you don't control. Who controls the other house? Who controls the White House? You can be the most influential congressman or senator, and your ability to get things done is impacted. When I was DNI, as you know, I just had to go into the Oval Office and convince one guy to let me do something halfway around the world to make a difference.
In fairness, that was sometimes tougher than the entirety of Congress, but that's fine. We'll leave that for another time. All right, quick question for you. Based on all the classified information, all the secrets, all the bad stuff, how often should people change their computer password?
It's a good question.
It's not going to help you even if you do.
All right. Thank you, Director.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Appreciate it, Don.
Good.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I'm going to stand.
Yeah.
I'll let them sit.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Good.
All right. And last, but certainly not least, welcome my friend Drake Franklin, a policy analyst at AFPI Center for the American Values, and his lovely wife, Jayme Franklin, as well.
There we go.
CEO of the Conservateur, a woman's magazine that challenges the progressive orthodoxy.
So there. Odie, you did. You needed a chair, so
That's true.
go. I'll stand.
It's true.
I'll stand.
All right. Thank you all very much for coming out. I want to start off with this because so many, in our group, feel like the younger generation just lost, that there are so many problems out there. And I know that there are. You guys see them every single day. But a lot of folks in the millennial Gen Z group are kind of rejecting the woke ideology. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are you seeing that in your groups?
So I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that a Gallup poll recently, I think it was in January, they showed that boys who are Gen Z are overwhelmingly going conservative by 30 points compared to girls. So
Yes.
I think with boys...
One for us.
Yeah.
That's it, Drake.
I think, I have younger brothers and I see this with them. They're not really political, but they're just so sick of this in their schools. They're sick of this in their TV shows. Even their video game was putting out BLM and they were like, what is that? And I think boys are rebellious in nature. And so when you're kind of cramming something down on them, they want to go the other way. But I think with girls, they've really attached themselves to this woke ideology because I kind of feel like it's emotional blackmail for them. And, they want to be empathetic and care for other people. And I think a lot of it's out of a good place, but it's obviously the wrong outcome, if that makes sense. And I think with women and young girls, in order to recapture them, we really need to be involved in the culture. Conservatives were obviously very strong in the political arena, but as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, we've let the entire culture, whether we're talking about Hollywood, the mainstream media, we're talking about the fashion industry, mega corporations, they are all so far left. And, you see it all over Instagram and on social media, and women are really involved in the culture. And so there's not a lot of cultural outlets for women. I did start a magazine, though, for women. It's called The Conservateur. So we're trying to recapture some women back. And I think we need more ventures like that in the culture.
And Chad and I are available for cover sheets for that anytime you'd like to do that. But Drake, same question to you. Obviously, we win this category because we're kind of rejecting it more than the females. But talk a little bit. Well, for those of you who don't know, I'm on the development team at API. If you didn't know that, I'd love to chat with you shortly after this. But earlier this year, Martin and I went on a donor trip, and we got to tour this beautiful property of a supporter of ours. And it was thousands of acres, cattle, horses. And we were looking at their beautiful house out in the terrace. And this supporter, he looked over and he said, "Pretty good for a school teacher." And I thought, that just encompasses the entire American dream.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there who think my generation is only concerned about abortion or who goes to wet bathroom. But the people I talk to, they just want their shot at the American dream like their parents. They just want to be able to afford a house. They want to be able to start a family. They want to have a working wage. And I think if we can inspire those young people and show them that we have the solutions to these issues, then we'll be surprised how many come to our side.
Yeah, here. Drake, we're going to come right back to you. Biblical foundations. I know you've had a hand in that here at AFPI along with Dr. Overton and a lot of others. And I know we had a war room on it earlier today. Let me just kind of ask you a straightforward question here. What do you think is missing as far as not only that program, but in the churches today in this year? What do they need to be doing differently than they probably haven't done in the past?
Well, I'll never forget this. I was 16 years old, and my dad got invited to go to Trump Tower. And it was one of the first meetings with evangelical leaders. And it was in this boardroom meeting, and there was 30 of the largest pastors in the entire country. And all of a sudden, Trump walks in, doesn't say a word, goes straight to the head of the table, sits down, and says, "Well, frankly, I don't know what the hell is wrong with all of you." He says, "You have all this influence, you have all these people in your church that you're speaking to every Sunday, and you don't take a stand for anything, and they're bullying you." And I don't think that's ever been more evident than a few weeks ago when the President of the United States of America said, "We're replacing Easter with Transvisibility Day." So the stakes could not be higher. And to answer your question, what are we doing differently? There's over 300,000 churches in America, and only 17% of them registered voters. And so AFPI, through Biblical Foundation, is traveling all through the 19 counties, meeting with churches, having the pastors speak from the pulpit, and then registering at their congregants. And I think that will make an amazing difference when we activate the body of Christ.
Drake, and you and I have talked about this before, and I don't want to leave it on a sad note here, but 30 to 40 million evangelicals don't vote every cycle. An infinitesimal percentage of those people get involved will never lose. No question.
All right, we've got a couple of questions. I'm going to let your better half take both of these. So, Jayme, all of AFPI wants to know, does Drake own anything other than a black suit?
Drake's mom generously gets him so many amazing clothes. So I always say Drake wears like 10% of his wardrobe, and that's because his closet needs reorganization.
All black.
Okay, here's another one. I had the pleasure of running into you two at a Delta lounge in Atlanta on our way back to DC one night. And I look over and I see their baby, Vivian, in a what could be described as a bear jumper, a bear costume. So it basically had a hat thing in the ears. I remember I got on the plane, and sure enough, we were in the back of the plane because we don't do first class here at AFPI. And I look over and I see you two next to me. And I remember Drake looked at me and goes, "It's going to be a rough flight. This one's going to yell a lot. We haven't fed her." So the question is this. If I brought your daughter out right now and put her right there, and you both stood up and went like this, which one's she going to?
Drake, she's a daddy's girl.
Yeah, there we go. Yes.
I'll take that. Yeah.
All right.
That's why they have noise-canceling earphones for planes, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. She was great. She was fine.
Sorry if you've ever flown with us.
No. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Well, that concludes our little session here. I'd like to say did that in 28 minutes. Very happy about that. Tune into the Tank. We're actually taping a special here with Kellyanne Conway that will be aired probably in about a week from now. So you can find it Spotify, podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Please tune in.
Text the word TANK to 70107. That's TANK to 70107 to get exclusive content from the Tank podcast and to learn more about the America First Policy Institute.